The world of the Elder Scrolls is dominated by both gods and Daedric princes, with each having their own subsets and variations. None more so than in the gods, with each god not only having numerous versions of themselves existing both simultaneously and at different points throughout the games and related literature, but some of these gods don't even fit into the categories that the others do. A concept that this video will explore, and in the process, perhaps shed some light on what these lesser gods are, and maybe more. As with all these Elder Scrolls lore videos, I'll be putting this disclaimer out at the front. That being that everything I say in this video, as well as anything that I show, with some exceptions, which will be mentioned, is based purely within the currently widely accepted canon of the Elder Scrolls universe, and as such will follow sources such as games, lore books, and any other officially recognized Bethesda work. If I do ever make any reference to theory or my own frames of thought, I will explicitly mention as such, and will make sure that it does not escape into any other portion of the video. In addition to this, though I didn't mention it in my previous video, due to the massive gods present in the Elder Scrolls universe, there may and definitely will be plenty of overlap between gods, though as said previously, I will always mention as such. That being said, let's get right into the video. As with the previous video, I'd like to first clarify what exactly a god is in the context of this video, and more so in the Elder Scrolls universe. That being that they are not Daedra, though some cultures, such as the Dunmeri one, may worship them as such. Rather, when I'm referring to gods throughout this video, I'm specifically referring to Aedra, some at Ada, or mortals that have somehow come to surpass their physical bonds. That said, this short series of videos will be overviewing the various gods of Tamriel by splitting them up into three major categories. The first being widely accepted gods, with 3 or more pantheons seeing them as so, less widely accepted gods, and lastly, mortals who achieved godhood. In the case of this video in particular, I will be covering the less widely accepted gods, whereas in the previous I covered the more widely accepted ones, and in the video to come I will cover mortals who became gods. To start off, quantifying the number of total less widely accepted gods would be a good way to delve further into them. Those gods, whose more well-known names I'll use to list them, number a total of 7, with those 7 gods being Alduin, Leki, Unding, Jon and Jode, Anzi, Vandar, and Riddlethar, with Alduin being a bit of an exception as he is technically a part of Akatosh. And speaking of which, Alduin is the first god on our list. He is worshipped in a total of 2 known pantheons, those being the Nordic, where he takes on the name mentioned, and the Redguard pantheon, where he takes on the name Sadakal. In the case of the Nordic version, he takes on the title of the World Eater, being a massive black dragon who not only consumes the entirety of the plane, but heralds the end of each cycle, otherwise known as a Kalpa. Alduin is known to refer to himself as the firstborn of Akatosh, but is more commonly referred to as an aspect of the dragon god of time, and as such may even be the god himself, though that would delve too heavily into theory. His name then, as Alduin is a word in the dragon language, Dovazul, stands for Destroyer, Devourer, Master, referencing not only his corrupted form in Skyrim, but also the fact that he is a dragon in both mind and body. As to his history, outside of the legends of him in the Nordic lifespans, as well as his involvement in the main plot of Skyrim, not much else is known. Though it appears, as with what Parthenax tells us at the end of the main questline of Skyrim, that Alduin is perhaps not dead, as his soul was returned back to the heavens, and maybe, in the future, he may return, and once more consume the world, and this time without becoming corrupt, as his draconic form would dictate. The next and far less understood version of Alduin, at least to our closest comparison, is Sadakal, the Redguard or Yukuden god of everything. Though, don't let this title fool you, as even though Sadakal is a combination of the Yukuden words for Anu and Padme, also known as Sithis, he is still known as the World Eater. This most likely being attributed to the primary task that Sadakal, the Worldskin, is faced with. That is, consuming the previous world to bring about the next. It should be noted though, while Sadakal is the one to end the world and Ruptka to bring about the next, The way that he's talked about in the Yukuden pantheon is more akin to a force or an object than that of a singular entity like Alduin. As for the differences between the two interpretations of the World Eater, there is really only one, and that is in reference to what exactly the World Eater is. With the Nords believing Alduin to be an altogether separate being from Akatosh, who only exists to consume the world to begin the new Kalpa, while the Redguard believe Sadakal to be the dead skin of the primordial Satak that refused to give up its hunger, and that even after biting its own heart, shed its skin once more as to become the new world alongside the other primordial Akel, so that it may consume the world once more and satisfy its hunger. Overall then, it seems that despite the differences between Sadakal and Alduin, they are ultimately the same god in purpose, and as such may both hint at the true nature of the other. The god after Alduin on this list is Leki, worshipped in the Yukuden pantheon as the Saint of the Spirit Sword. Leki is known most prominently as the goddess daughter of Talpapa, also known as Ruptga, and takes the title of goddess of aberrant swordsmanship. As such, her title as well as her numerous legends indicate that Leki has had much to do with both the Redguard and how their swordsmanship has developed throughout the ages, with nearly every fight with or a new technique introduced by Leki resulting in some sort of massive change involving the Redguard, the most notable being their war with the Aldmer and the creation of the settlement of Leki's Blade in the alik'r desert. Outside this, not much else is known about Leki, and similar to past cases of this lack of information, it would be best to move on to the next god, as this is once again only an overview. With Leki now being covered, we can move on to a much more prolific and world-changing god, at least for the Redguard, Hunding. Hunding is known as the Make-Way god, or the god of perseverance over infidels in the Yukuden pantheon, known to historically materialize over the centuries as his avatar when Redguards had need to make way for their own people, with this materialization occurring only 3 times in Tamriel history, the first being in the Regatta invasion in the form of Hunding and Diagna, the second during the Tiber Wars, and the third during the time of the Elder Scrolls Redguard, where it's believed that he may have materialized as either the Redguard crown Cyrus, or stored with the soul of Prince Ator, the last heir to the throne of Hammerfell, or both. Though, once again, we don't have much more information on who exactly Hunding is, or what his greater implication in relations to the other gods are, and as such means we should move on. The next 2 gods, unlike with the previous few, are not Yukuden, they're Khajiit and Basmeri to be exact, and instead are essentially 2 parts to a whole, these gods being Jon and Jod. In Khajiit and Basmeri culture, Jon and Jod are known to be parts or aspects of the lunar lattice, or Jacques as they refer to it as, and as such represent each of the moons respectively, with Jod being the Aldmeri god of the big moon, Masir also known as Mars Tyr, and Jon being the Aldmeri god of the little moon, Secunda also known as Stendarr Sorrow. The 2 gods are also known to have quite the large connection to Lorkhan, or Lorkhaj as the Khajiit would call him, though that connection has only been made in ESO during the main questline of the Reaper's March region, with Jon and Jod most likely being just embodiments of what became of the remainder of Lorkhan as interpreted by the Khajiit, though that last bit is merely speculation. But now that we're through with the rather vague twin moon gods of the Khajiit, we can move on to the even more vague god on this list, Anzi. Anzi is once again another god in the Yukuden pantheon, known most prominently as the warrior god of the Yukuden Regatta. Anzi is said to have taught the Redguard how to, quote, pull their knives into swords, unquote, most likely in reference to him teaching them on how to arm themselves and fight. Other notable things about Anzi include how he is essentially the patron god of blacksmiths to the Redguard, and how he is claimed in the tale of King Faharshad's youth to have personally saved him from a hagraven. Though whatever Anzi's true nature, and even more so what more in the Yukuden pantheon he represents may be, it's, as stated like 4 times already, not known all too well. The second to last god on this list is Bandar, the Khajiit and somewhat Basmeri bandit god, not to be confused with Regine, who is a topic for the next episode. Though, similar to Sadakal, Bandar seems to be much less of a god and more of a concept, with him being so integral to the Khajiit belief system that he has become a pariah, standing for the cleverness and desperate genius of the many long-suffering Khajiit, whose ability to adapt to changing settings has upset their Mer and Man enemies alike. As for his existence in the Bosmeri pantheon, not much is known outside of the fact that he is worshipped primarily because of his connection to archery rather than his cleverness. All of which ultimately ends up circling back around to a great example of how one god is perceived to be a way of life in one culture, and is altogether both that and an entity in another. With everything out of the way, we now have the last of the less widely accepted gods on our list, Rilithar. Rilithar is the cosmic order deity of the Khajiit pantheon, revealed to the Khajiit by the prophet and main Ridthar-Ridata. The Rilithar, just like with Bondar, is more akin to a way of living than a single physical or spiritual entity, though it has made various appearances in the form of avatars throughout the eras. In addition to his previously mentioned title, Rilithar is also known as the Sugar God, as it is said that he promised the Khajiit a paradise known as Lesware, which sounds strangely like an anagram for elsewhere, and is generally worshipped or followed via a rather obscure and not well-known way of living, something that entails both spiritual and physical prowess. But with Rilithar being covered, it seems that we've once again exhausted the list of gods for this episode. But fear not once more, as there is still one last group of gods remaining to cover. The gods who at some point were mortal. A grouping of gods that, unlike this rather stale group, at least in comparison, has had such a great impact on Tamriel that they've resulted in the fall of not only empires, but in the rise of gods and events that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Though that story is one that's quite wrapped up in the history of those gods, and as stated earlier, is best left as a story for another time.
I've been in the kitchen, saucing. I've been bossing in the kitchen, saucing. I've been bossing.
Bitch, I'm a baker, cause I keep making bread. Sure, keep looking like a snack. I eat it up, shit. Give me head all king in the kitchen. Eat it good. I keep them fed, and I have a special food. Nigga, call me big head. All game smoking, cooking. Got a fast like cooking. Green, got a big high, so it's high rock when I'm cooking. Bitch, got a fade.